OpenAI, Google, and Meta are all racing to build cheaper AI models that do nearly the same job as their expensive flagships, and it's about to destroy the premium AI market. Here's what's actually happening behind the scenes and why it matters to you. For the last 2 years, the story in AI has been about going bigger. Bigger models, better performance, higher prices. GPT-4 costs way more to run than GPT 3.5. Claude 3 Opus is pricier than Claude 3 Haiku. You'd think the business model is simple. Sell the fancy stuff to enterprises, make bank. But something weird is happening. At the exact same time these companies are releasing their premium models, they're also releasing stripped-down, lightweight versions. And here's the kicker. Those cheaper models are getting shockingly close to the expensive ones on most tasks that actually matter. Let me give you concrete numbers. GPT-4o Mini costs about 15 cents per million input tokens. GPT-4 Turbo costs around $3 per million input tokens. That's a 20x price difference. But on a lot of real-world jobs, writing emails, answering questions, summarizing documents, even some coding, the mini version gets you 85 to 90% of the way there. Maybe 95% on easy tasks. Google's doing the same thing with Gemini. They've got the full-size Gemini model for enterprise, and then Gemini Flash, which is insanely fast and cheap. Meta released Llama 3.1 in multiple sizes, from 8 billion parameters all the way up to 405 billion. The smaller versions are free, open source, and honestly, they're good enough for a ton of use cases. So why are they doing this? Why would a company intentionally cannibalize its own premium product? The answer is market dynamics, and it's brutal. If you don't offer a cheap option, someone else will. Open source models are getting scary good. Llama is free. Mistral is free. If OpenAI doesn't have a cheap version, enterprises and developers start experimenting with open source. Once they're comfortable with an open model, switching back to OpenAI becomes harder. Even if the premium version is better, you lose the customer entirely. So the strategy is actually defensive. By releasing a cheap version yourself, you keep the user in your ecosystem. They start with GPT-4o Mini. They get hooked on your API, and then when they need something more powerful, they upgrade to the full version. Or they stay on Mini forever, but they're still paying you, not Mistral or someone else. It's the razor and blade model. Give away the cheap razor, make money on the blades. Except in this case, the cheap razor is actually pretty sharp. But here's where it gets interesting for you. This is creating a weird paradox. The cheaper models are getting better so fast that the expensive models are starting to look like a bad deal. Why pay $3 per million tokens if 15 cents gets you 90% of the result? Some companies are already noticing this. They're doing the math and realizing that using a cheap model with smarter prompting, better retrieval, or a slightly longer response time actually beats using an expensive model. You get more tokens for the same budget. You can do more things. This is why you're starting to see a lot of talk about inference optimization and prompt engineering and retrieval-augmented generation. These are all ways to squeeze more value out of cheaper models. It's not about having the smartest model anymore. It's about using the right tool for the job. So what happens next? Here's my prediction. The expensive models don't disappear, but they become more specialized. GPT-4 Turbo or Claude 3 Opus won't be your general-purpose workhorse anymore. They'll be the thing you use when you actually need maximum reasoning power, complex analysis, hard problems, things that really do need the big brain. For everything else, the 90% of tasks that are routine, cheap models win. And companies will build their products around that. You'll have a tiered approach. Route easy questions to the cheap model, hard ones to the expensive one. Use smaller models for speed, bigger ones for accuracy when it matters. This is already happening. Some AI companies are building model routers that automatically decide which model to use based on the complexity of the request. It's like having a smart dispatcher that knows when to send a junior developer versus a senior architect. The real winner in all this? Probably you, honestly. Competition drives prices down, and cheaper models drive innovation. The loser is the company that thought they could charge premium prices forever just because they built a big model first. That era is ending. What actually matters now is not how big your model is, but what you can do with it. Can you build better products? Can you integrate it smarter? Can you fine-tune it for your specific use case? Those are the real competitive advantages, not raw model size. The scary part for some companies is that this race to cheap is also a race to commoditization. If everyone has access to a capable cheap model, the moat shrinks. You have to compete on something else: distribution, trust, specific features, speed, reliability. You can't just sit on a fancy model and charge a premium anymore. So the secret that's not really secret anymore is this: AI companies are intentionally building cheaper models to kill their expensive ones, because if they don't, someone else will. And in the process, they're actually making AI more accessible and more useful for everyone. If you want to stay on top of this stuff, because the strategy around which models to use is going to shift dramatically in the next 6 months, subscribe. I break down these moves as they happen, so you actually understand what's changing and why, instead of getting caught off guard.